I don't know if I'll get up today. I don't know if I'll give one single today. My whole outlook is sunken gray, and I have no idea why I woke up this way. Got my phone in my right hand, my books on the nightstand. If I unlock and I app pop, I'm stuck there, I'm a dead man. So Lord, give me the strength to please read one page. If it works in any way, I'll move on to the next thing, oh dear. I got my socks on, I'm coming up.
Welcome to Positively Undefeated. This is a podcast that talks about the day-to-day struggle ordinary people have over their demons and how each day they remain positively undefeated. We share ideas and ways that you can empower yourself to remain strong so that you can embrace the journey of living.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in to our podcast, Positively Undefeated. I'm Burl, your host. I'm here with Bianca. Hi, Bianca.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. I want to just remind everybody, if you have a chance, go to your favorite podcasting app and like our show, follow it, review it. That helps us a lot. Share with your friends. Also go to our website, which is evenoneless.com. And you can be able to contact us, find out more information. We have some blogs on there and some good resources. And then also we got these cool hats that I'm wearing. We're not really using video.
It's a nice hat.
Yeah. So you can, we have some cool apparel on there. So if you get a chance, check out our website, evenoneless.com. All right, Bianca, I appreciate you being on. First of all, I'm real curious about this. Do you still do Jiu-Jitsu or no?
Oh, yeah. I train probably 4 or 5 times a week, and I'm pretty active competitively as well.
Yeah. So do you train? I see that you go to the Southwest Barbell. Do you still go there?
I do. I go there about right now 2 times a week. I also clean there. So I've been at Southwest for about 4 years now. They're a great group of people.
Yeah, it's a small world because I used to actually go there to train once a week back in the day. So there was a coach there, trainer there that he actually isn't there anymore. I think he started his own gym or something. But anyway,
Was it Chris?
Yeah, Chris.
Yep, Chris moved to New York.
Oh, did he really?
And he's still doing his thing out there, and it's a whole different vibe. And he's adapted to it really well. I hope they really appreciate what they've got in him.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy. He actually did a weightlifting clinic for us at one time. So he's a great guy. So what made you get into like Jiu-Jitsu? I can't even say it correctly.
Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian
what made you
Jiu-Jitsu.
get into it?
So I had been kind of on this wellness journey for a long time. I think that having my 2 sons really got me started on knowing that I needed my body and my mind and everything to be healthier to be able to keep up with them. And I had been starting slowly. I've lost 170 pounds actually since that time, which is a whole other side of it all. But after I had been working out for all those years, I had hit this plateau. I had been training at Planet Fitness, probably 6 days a week. And I got approached by somebody, a promoter for here in town. They do these tough man competitions.
Mm-hmm.
And he pretty much told me.
Is that like strongman competition? Is it the same?
No, tough man is actually an amateur boxing competition that they do here in town. And this promoter guy somehow convinced me that I could do a 3 1-minute round boxing match because of how much I worked out, essentially.
Wow.
And I went in there with 0 experience. I did that. I ended up going against a 250 pound, like 60 pounds heavier than me woman at the time. And I didn't get knocked down or out. It was by decision. And that was fun. But what came out of that is that night in that pit, in that space, I got to meet a whole bunch of different fighters. And learn about their gyms and their communities, and they invited me to their places. And one thing led to another, and I started striking. First I was doing like kickboxing and women's self-defense and stuff like that. And then I think that they kind of teased me that I was chicken until I started doing jujitsu, to the point where I was just like, all right, well, I'm gonna go prove to you guys that I'm not scared to do it. I just didn't want to do it. And it was undeniable how much better and how much more quickly my body adapted, and how good I was at
Yeah.
doing jujitsu, that it was just like, oh, maybe I should pay attention to this. And really, I prayed on the progression of my jujitsu career very stubbornly, very stubbornly. I was like, I want to sign your sign. If this is for me, let me see. And really, God was so good to me and gave me all the affirmation that I needed and really didn't deserve, but it was just his way of helping me make the right choices. And so since then, I have had women and children just fall into my lap all everywhere. I've had 4 home gyms over the last 6 years that I've been training. And I have taught women and children in all those spaces. And it's been a life changer for sure.
I think it's like anything else. I owned a CrossFit gym, and that's why I actually did training with Chris at the time. I was working on different techniques and stuff. And of course, people who haven't done CrossFit, or, they just talk about it. A lot of them, talk about how you can get hurt doing it and how it's not safe. And of course, I've heard the same thing about jiu-jitsu. I've heard that, it's real hard on your body, that can be dangerous for your joints. And, usually whenever people say that with CrossFit, like I said at the beginning, it's usually because they haven't done it, or they had maybe a bad coach or a bad trainer who just threw them in
That's
there. Yeah.
that's really the same across the board, I think, with any space that you train in, with anybody that you train with how you train yourself.
Mhm.
Often, I mean, I've been training 6 years, and I've trained through every injury I've ever had. I'm really grateful for my lifting friends that help PT me. My coach currently, Carlos Dominguez, he's in a wheelchair, and he is absolutely amazing at doing like just adaptive training and helping me recover from injuries and stuff. But the people that I know that are always hurt, that are always getting injured, are people that, if I'm going to be honest, have pride issues. And I think that that's really, at the end of the day, what gets you hurt in any of these disciplines. If you're going to push yourself to the point where you hurt yourself, there's a line there, there's a line, there's competition. You can't really, um, depend on all of your opposition. In jujitsu, it's more than just a bar. There is somebody coming up against you. But if you have too much pride to, tap out in jujitsu, there's always a way to stop the match. And if you know that you cannot move and that thing's going to happen, you should tap. And it's the same as if you are in the middle of a lift and it's not going to happen. You have the opportunity to bail, or you have the opportunity to lean into it and really try to push through it, and you can hurt yourself. And that's what happens. The people that I know, like they move too intensely. They have too much pride to let something go, and that's usually how they end up. And
Yeah.
I train too much to have that pride exist in my life. I have to come back tomorrow, so I'm okay.
I think you bring up a great point, because I've been really talking about that for a while, is that, you hear quitters never, or winners never quit. You hear these lines about never quitting, but there actually is times whenever it's best to quit. You know what I mean? I think that, especially when you're talking about something that could get you hurt, we almost like put shame to quitting. But I think there's some things that you should never quit, or there's times when you shouldn't quit. I always think about running. It's like, of course, if you haven't been running for a while and you start running, well, there's everything your body's telling you to quit. And so
Yeah.
sometimes you need to push through, but there's
Yeah.
absolutely times whenever you're doing any physical, whether it be running or CrossFit or, whatever, that you need to quit what you're doing because it's just going to lead to some kind of injury. And there's no shame in quitting. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, this is more than my body can handle right now.
Especially if, again, if it's the wiser decision, if it's the thing that keeps you able to come the next day, if it makes you able to continue doing what you're supposed to be doing. If you are pushing through to the point where then you can no longer do the thing, then
Yeah.
something went wrong.
So originally, like when you were talking about, you talked about you were overweight, and then you were at work and working out at Planet Fitness. I mean, what started you down this journey of like working out initially, and maybe trying to lose weight or whatever, get healthy? What started you down that journey?
It was really my children. I had, my weight kind of spiraled out of control with having my two big boys that are now 12 and 11.
Mhm.
They were 11 months apart, and they were all of 1 and 2 years old in 2013 when I really made a decision. I remember I was carrying one of them in my arm, and I had to reach down and get the other one, and I really couldn't do it. And it broke me in that moment. It feels so silly now, but it was needed. It was really, really needed in that moment. And I remember when I couldn't walk um an entire mile. I remember that I would push and I felt like I was walking forever, and it was 0.75. I remember that day. And, now I could, not well, but I could run 3, not
Yeah.
well, but for who I was before, I have to give myself that. Definitely a place of gratitude of what my body is able to do that I could not do at all before.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people don't really talk about. I mean, yeah, when you start working out, there's two things that when I'm listening to you talk about your story is that one is that community is a huge deal. This idea that you meet other people who kind of are down the same journey as you are, that community is huge. And I don't think we give enough credit to that. Like for me, back in the day, it was CrossFit community that really made a difference for me. And, it's motivational. And then I hear you talk about that I showed up and, really the people that were there, were helpful and friendly and all that. But I also don't think we talk enough about, like, I don't know if you call it like the fringe benefits outside of just physical transformation, that there's like confidence and, just things that we don't even know we lack, we start to gain from, the physically, pushing your body, out of its comfort zone, I guess. And I hear that kind of what you're saying too, is that, man, there was benefits outside. What kind of benefits do you think that you got from either one of them, just the Planet Fitness or, continuing your journey with Jiu-Jitsu?
Well, I think I spend a lot of time really calling out um all of I think that I spend a lot of time actually talking in my life about how much of a need my village has been for my entire life. I really talk about how I do not doubt God's placement of every single person and entity in my life because it's so perfect that it's just undeniable. I have, I got here by a series of events. I was born and raised in Boston, from Argentinian parents, that came from Argentina. Like the odds of me ending up here in Oklahoma, just the way it worked was so perfect. But then again, being here, my church community, I go to Grace Fellowship Church. Um, Ricardo Cavalcanti, Alpha MMA, that's my jujitsu gym, and the people in it. But it's not just them, also the people that I gained from all of the other 3 gyms that I went to. And at this point, the people that I have competed against in other states that have become part of online communities and just real life support systems. These people message me daily and encourage me. They send me, scripture. They're powerful warriors of God. And I am so grateful because none of it's by chance, every single day, every single one of them is planted where it is needed for me to keep on going and do what I need to do. Emily is one of them. Just the way that our paths crossed is not a chance. It's just it was in a place that existed for a very short period of time, and we both ended up there at the same time to meet.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty phenomenal. Yeah, I think that, it's one of the pillars that we talk about with our, not-for-profit organization, Even One Less. We talk about the community is such a big deal. It seems like it's one of the first things to go away whenever there's a struggle, if you're not careful. And I think it's like very difficult sometimes to find that community. And I think people also may be surprised where they can find it. I think that, the most logical place, or the way we're taught maybe about where to find community, oftentimes is church. And then if somebody can't find it there, and there seems to be, a struggle with, people finding their community in church. And it's not saying that there's anything wrong with it. May be the wrong church for them. It may be they just went on a kind of off night, or, one of the things I used to do is I go to church. I'd show up like 5 minutes before the service would begin. And then as soon as the service was over, I was out the door. And then I'm wondering why I can't seem to make any, connections there at church. And I think that looking, I had to put some blame on myself because that's what I did. And part
That's
of
rough.
it, whenever I was really doing that for a long period of time, like years, I look back now and I was struggling. And so
Yeah.
I did and needed the community, but also found myself isolating myself, that I would isolate.
I think that it is a huge deal. I've had, I talk about this as well when, sometimes people will look at, something, anything really that you desire in your life and say, you're so lucky or they're so lucky that, they just fell into it like that. And while if you put yourself in the right places at the right times, sometimes things do kind of fall into place. I think that just like you were saying, it takes a very intentional mindset to also be soft hearted and open and willing to receive that community as well. And it's hard to kind of walk around in that intentionally all the time, especially in this day and age where we are so disconnected from each other. It takes a push that a lot of people, especially in weak or sad or, hurt moments, it's extra hard for them to be the first step out there. And so I think that a huge, huge thing that we can do as a community is kind of be the one, they say it takes 50-50, but no, it doesn't take 50-50. Some days I might have 80, it's the same as any relationship. And I think when we're in those spaces, whether it be a church or a gym, first of all, put yourself in places where people are seeking help and wellness and those things. All of those kind of places have people in them that are striving to get themselves to a higher way of being, and that is good. You don't want to go to places like, once you're stronger, yeah, of course, you have no issue going and finding and making friends in bars or places, like a recovery group or something like that. But if you go places like that when you're weak and you attach yourself to somebody else that is also weak, the guidance is not there. The structure is not there. And that's how you find a lot of, times addicts that end up together and they end up not, moving in that direction. Whereas sometimes you find them they find each other in a different space, like a CrossFit gym or a Jiu-Jitsu gym, and somehow the redirection of what the focus was of what you guys were doing together makes it so that you guys are not weak in that, because that's not the focus. You guys are just wanting to be better. You're wanting to get healthier. You're wanting to put down bad things in that place. It's rough. It's like,
Wow, honestly, as I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking about your advice or your thoughts, I mean, I think you're dead on. I really do. I think.
thank you. Sometimes I feel like I'm rambling, but I think it catches on to people what I'm trying to explain, that there are times, and you should be honest with yourself, when you're weaker or stronger, and we fluctuate through that. God tells us, we were built for this wrestling, and He wants us to wrestle like that. It shows us we're alive, and we're encouraged in that with each other. We're all daily struggling with these little tiny things, and we're weaker today because of something that shouldn't have made us weaker this morning. And somebody can see that, and they could be having a good day and encourage you in that. And we latch on to that light. And the more of those people that you have around you that God intentionally put in front of you to encourage you to keep on going, you need to pay attention to that and be honest about when you see it too. That's huge. How often are we stuck in a mood or stuck in a bad way, and convincing ourselves that it is rightfully so because this wrong was done to us, or this bad thing did happen to us, and we have light pushing into us, and we refuse it, we rebuke it. We don't want it. And I think that it's huge to soften and let our hearts take that sometimes. And I pray for my heart to not harden up pretty often. I can be in a bad mood and I'm like, and we all gotta put that down.
I think you make a great point. It's like, I've heard it maybe in a different way in the past, but the way you were saying it, it's like, if you go to a CrossFit gym or you go to a certain gym and those people are trying to get better. It's not just about the gym, but it's like attaching yourself to people who, like you said, who are working on themselves or trying to do, grow. And I think that's great because, like I said, I think isolation is such a big deal when you're struggling. That's what happens. A lot of us just isolate ourselves. What, what do it seems since, you being a woman, if
I
another
think
woman,
I should probably share something that's pretty significant in my storyline to
okay.
this movement. Um, I was married, um, and I was with my husband for 10 years,
Mhm.
and he got very sick. He got paranoid schizophrenia. He was
Mhm.
diagnosed with that in probably 2016,
Yeah.
and he lived 4 years in that overwhelming, topsy-turvy kind of life, which it's very similar to a dementia
Mhm.
type of mind. And in 2020, he ended up taking his life amidst, just an episode that he couldn't pull himself out of anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a really big deal for people to understand, especially from somebody that was so closely connected to somebody and watched really their entire path, like, and loving them very much. I think that it was absolutely necessary that he took the steps to create a kind of routine, to
Mhm.
build a community, and to step into and lean into those things
Mhm.
for anything to have gotten different. And
Mhm.
so when you say to yourself, people isolate themselves and they kind of want to put up that wall, like that hard heart that I was talking about. I think that the biggest message that I want to put out to people that are feeling that kind of helpless thing is that first of all, start in your own house if you don't want to involve anybody else, and give yourself a routine. Tell yourself that you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to do a devotional from 9 to 10 a.m. And after that, you're going to work out for an hour. And then you're going to make yourself lunch and give yourself those little goals that are going to get you moving through the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like people get that hopeless feeling and don't see the rope, the light, everything that's around you. And yeah, I'm sorry that I'm so emotional. I'm always like that. If you know me, you know that my heart is always feeling everything around me. And so obviously this is a big one because it's very personal.
Yeah.
But I really just want to pray that over anybody that might be listening to this message and anybody that might want to share this with anybody that's feeling hopeless, is that first of all, you are surrounded by an unending light from a source that cannot be turned off, and that it is always reaching for you. And all you have to do is look around to find it, even when it's really hard. And so I just pray that they use those little steps that I gave you. Just give yourself your own, very own routine for yourself to make yourself a better you, because God made you to be a perfect, wonderfully made being. And if you're just working on you, that's enough.
Mhm.
And God will see you doing that and will grow the opportunity for you to continue to do that. And so, yeah, that's my suggestion, because I never want anybody to isolate themselves. It's really not the design. It was not the intention. God gave us each other.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that um, people, or I had a tendency to do this. I see this in other people where they may go to church, for example, and they feel they're judging themselves. They feel shame for whatever reason. They're judging themselves. And then automatically, it's so easy to put that on the people that are around you. They're thinking they are judging you. They have
Absolutely.
negative thoughts about you. And I think that, yeah, there are people that are like that are very judgmental, but I think that they're like the 10-20%. They're not the 80-90% that really isn't. But you're really putting what you're feeling inside on those people. And so it's so easy to walk into a gym or a
Yep.
church and be able to, like, oh, they're judging me. They're talking about me. They know what the things that I've struggled with. And so I don't want to go back because they're so judgmental. But I actually feel like that is stuff we put on ourselves. And, you meet somebody for 5 minutes, then that's not enough time to draw a conclusion. And sometimes we need to break through. And even if, like, let's say you get on this podcast and I prejudge you. Well, the goal is, let's work through that. Let's talk about it. Let's talk. And then I think that easily, if I had any preconceived notions, which I didn't, but if I did, then, I think that those kind of melt away as we are vulnerable and open about our lives. And I think that that's the majority of the people. I think that they feel the same way, because part of them, they're struggling too, and they want to be open and vulnerable too. But, somehow somebody's got to break through that barrier. And I think that breaking through the barrier is just time and realizing that, you're feeling a certain way. That doesn't mean other people are feeling that way about you, you know?
It's amazing when the switch happens in your life where you realize that being the strong person was never not letting any of that stuff out. It was actually releasing all of it. Being the strong person is the person stepping forward and apologizing. It's being the person that steps forward and admits, their own fault. It's being honest and admitting how they feel, their mistakes. And that's the harder part.
Mhm.
Keeping it all bottled up and, all of that is much easier. And, we somehow get this idea that we're tougher for not putting that stuff out. And it's crazy because from the outside in, when you're looking at that, you realize that's a person that is not healed and is hurting and has all these issues, and you don't even notice that you're that person until you're not anymore. And it's rough. It's rough to explain for sure.
I think you like back to, your thoughts on, the schedule, the routine. I think that that's great advice for somebody who's struggling.
Yeah.
I, what would you say to somebody, and we deal with this a lot, I've dealt with this a lot personally and family and friends. What would you say to someone who, like, back to 2020, whenever your husband had committed suicide? What would be your advice to the person that their family member has done that, and how you got through it, and how you made, how you recovered from that? I think about my aunt a lot. My aunt, really, her and I co-founded this, organization, and she had two children, and both of them committed suicide. And so I think about that a lot. I think about, like, how did she recover and how did she make it through it? Because, as a parent, it seems impossible to me. And then, I hear your story, and then how you've made it through it. And so I'm curious your advice to those people who have had somebody that they love and they care about, die or commit suicide or both.
So it's I have a very, very different kind of stance on this because, we are saved, we are eternal,
Mhm.
and I see grace in my husband not being how he was anymore.
Yeah.
And so for me, it took a lot. It was the first time, it's a huge moment, a huge relational moment for me with God. It was the first time in my life that I remember really, really being like, you are absolutely wrong. This is not it, and God brings me back to that moment often. And it actually took a lot of people approaching me, and it was very weird for me. I wrestled with this in a very, very different way, but it took all of these people reaching out to me that for the decade that I had been with my husband, I had never heard from them. It was very bizarre, all the people that came to try to outpour love on me because of, really what must have been regret on their end and a mourning of a relationship they could have had that they didn't have. And for me, that was weird to receive because I didn't understand their mourning.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I finally understood my mourning as such a personal thing and not really like if I had wanted Josh to stay how he was, it would have been very selfish. It's because I wanted him here. And so for me, I think that I was just grateful that he was in a better place and not suffering while I was for myself mad that I was left here to do everything. And so I think that once we understand that we're upset about things that we didn't get to do right now how we wanted them, that we didn't get the timeline right now how we wanted the timeline. We had this expectation in our head of how it was supposed to go, and we thought that it was wrong because it was different. And while the darkness of the world may have made it wrong, like the reality of it is that this is going to be such a blurb, such a little speck of sand in what our eternal realities are. We go on forever. My pastor was recently talking about like, we look at life like we have these bookends, there's a beginning and an end. And the reality of it is that we have no end. We go on forever. And I think that as hard as it is, much easier said than done when you sink into that reality and even though you may not like it, that right now you don't have that relationship or that person how you want it, you have hope. in knowing that you get it infinitely better than you could have ever imagined later on,
Yeah. I think what
which
you're
is much
saying,
easier said than done.
I'm listening to you talk, and I mean, there's some great wisdom there. There really is. I think about my cousin, when him and I were extremely close, and I think about, all like what he was going through. He was just, like you said, he was hurting, he was struggling, and, that's definitely, now that I think about it, it's like,
It's this world. It's so
yeah, he's
broken.
not dealing with that anymore. And um, I think the eternal part of it is something that is so true. It's like you're saying, it's just a small blip on the radar, really. Our lives are, I've been thinking a lot lately about how really our world is not, I know this is up for debate, but I just feel like that we're, everything's young, and it's like it hasn't really been around that long. And so our lives are very short compared to, eternity. And, you don't, I mean, I think our nation's only like 200 years old, something like that. So it's 200 and something years old. It's not very old when you think about America, when you think about it, and it just kind of, to what your point was, is that it's like a blip on the radar. It's just a small
Yeah.
fraction of time when you look at God's perspective, which is eternal. What about your kids? I mean, so I assume that your kids are from your husband, your late husband. Is that right?
Yeah, my three sons are my late husband, and then I remarried last October, and I he has a son that is now my fourth, and they are absolutely thriving, wonderful individuals. I am grateful that they get to grow up in this world that I got to fall into essentially. This world is much better than the one I grew up in, and I'm just super grateful. And I'm not talking about like the whole world, but I'm
Mm.
talking about our little world that we live in, and it's just so full of wonderful community and health and just so many wonderful things that I just pray that it empowers them to go out into the world and be stronger than any of us were, right from the beginning. I
Right.
know that they're going to struggle. I know things will be hard, but I feel like the foundation that is being built here is infinitely stronger than the base that I grew up with.
Hmm. Yeah. I know that like the father figure with boys, it's like it's a huge deal. And I think that it's funny because like guys my age, they're still talking about their dad and their relationship, whether it was good or bad, or, that's such a big impact. And really, I think probably your current, husband is able to fill a lot of that role and be a part of their life.
Absolutely. But before I ever met him, again, like there's no accidents in the community that God has built us. And in that time in between, when I tell you that the coaches, the teachers, the counselors at the schools, the men that came in around and like raised up my boys with me while I was, in that time where it was just us, they were just absolutely exactly what they needed at each of those moments. Just a combination of people that like their father couldn't have even had all of the attributes of the combinations of people that came in. It's just so beautiful, really. We have some amazing, amazing coaches and youth leaders and just all kinds of really good people that are in our life that I've kept forever. We're holding on to them for the rest of this earthly life.
Yeah. I think that's great because I think that, like almost one of the themes of our conversation today has been that community that has clearly made a big difference in your life. And you talk about your church community, you talk about your work, your with your workout, that community. I
All of
think,
it.
yeah. What,
I run a life group that we walk at Elmer Thomas Saturday mornings, and that's a smaller, like, another community. It's been 4 years that I've been doing that as well. And again, just every little community, even Mimosa Mountain, that it existed for just the period of time that it did, brought me a group of people that I have held on to and, like, don't plan on letting go of. Just awesome people.
walk? Is that what you do? Tell me what your group does.
Yes, we meet
Start.
at Elmer Thomas Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. We meet at the Buffalo in front of the museum,
Mhm.
and we read a devotional, and usually comes with a couple of verses at the end. And sometimes we talk about the devotional the whole way. Sometimes, depending on who's walking with us, somebody might be going through something. The conversation always flows like really naturally, and it's always exactly what it needs to be. And it's about 2 miles, takes like 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how many people and kids we have with us. But yeah, children are welcome if anybody wants to join us. It's you'll never regret doing it. It's a beautiful place, and fellowship matters, like we've been talking about this whole time.
What, Bianca, if people want to get a hold of you or they want to connect with you, what are the best ways for them to do that?
So my Instagram would probably be a good, very easy way to find me. It's Miss Bianca 617, MISSBIANCA 617. And if you want to follow me on there, that would be cool. And definitely shoot me a message if you want to find out about Jiu-Jitsu, if you want to find a church community, if you want to walk with my life group, if you want self-defense. I also teach self-defense to survivors of any domestic violence or, any kind of physical abuse. I will train you for free if you're needing that. So reach out to me for any of those things.
That's great. Well, I sure appreciate your time, Bianca. It's a pleasure. I think you
It
had
was great.
so many great nuggets for people when they listen. And, we'll send you the link whenever it goes out. It'll probably go out in, like, I would say probably next week. And we can, if you will share it too, that helps get our message out and what we're trying.
Absolutely. I'm gonna go like and follow your pages after this.
And I'd love to, we're talking about having, we have some events coming up in the future that we haven't set dates for. I mean, we're going to do an event in Ardmore. And then I know, eventually we're going to Nashville. We're also probably going to do an event in Medicine Park, I think in January. And so I'd love to, meet you in person, and maybe, when those events happen, we'll send you the information, and maybe you can attend the event. Like that one in
Absolutely.
the park will be very close to you. So, I would love for to meet you in person, and really, I think, find ways to partner with our organization, with you. And, that's one of our goals, is that we want to provide, of course, free of charge. It's like, here's the resources of people that, are making a difference, and God's making a difference in their lives. And, because when you're in that place of struggle, it's like we feel like
Nobody there.
there's nobody there. And also it's real easy to think that in fact, I just wrote a blog, and on that blog, I was talking about that when I was struggling, I was feeling like either God wasn't listening or he didn't care. You know what I mean? Even though I was a Christian, I'm struggling. In fact, I think part of that made it worse in my mind at the time, is that I'm struggling and God doesn't seem to care. I'm a
Yeah.
Christian. I don't, and obviously those things aren't true. And it took, like you talk about the light, it really took, different people in my life shining kind of their light, God's light through them, to make me realize that that wasn't
He was
true.
there the whole time.
Yeah, but during the struggle, it's so easy to think
Yeah.
that God doesn't care, or it's funny because I never thought he didn't exist, but I just thought, almost these thoughts like he's too busy to deal with my little life or whatever it is. And I think that, part of our goal is to really shine a light on people like you to be able to say, wait a minute, God is working. He is, I love how you talked about that you can, especially looking back, you can see all the people that God put in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and that those things weren't an accident and those things were on purpose. But again, at the moment when there's tragedy, traumas, whatever, you don't see it, but God
Yeah.
is,
At my so I was married in October. We married to my new husband Kevin. He is absolutely wonderful, and in the time coming up to it, I kept telling, I had made a little group of people that I invited to
right.
my wedding, and I walked out to Goodness of God, sung by my friends from the worship team that I serve on at church. I got married at my church, and everybody that I knew decorated the place. One of my opponents from a fight did my hair. It was just really nothing but people, like the promoters from my fights did my catering, and all I could say is I came out, and the song and the group of people was the biggest testimony of my life. And I tell them that all the time. I'm like, seeing this combination of people from everywhere and that song over them and all of them praying over me, it's absolutely what I hope people realize at some point in their life, that they just look around, and even amidst things that they don't like in it, realize the beauty of the things that were placed in there intentionally and are beautiful.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, Bianca, thank you so much for taking the time to be on our podcast. I'm sure we'll talk again soon, and hopefully, like I said, we can meet each other in an event or something there. But I hope you have a great day. And,
you as well.
Thank you guys for listening, and talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Positively Undefeated. If there was something in this show that resonated with you, please share the show with your community. If you want this show delivered each Monday morning to your podcast app of choice, please subscribe or follow. And if you'd like to get a hold of Burl, please do so by going to burlstricker.com/contact.